Gillette Stadium, Boston, July 16th, 2025. Coldplay is in the middle of yellow. The crowd is glowing. Phones are up. The energy is perfect. And then the kiss cam turns on. Out of 55,000 people, it lands on 2. Andy Byron, CEO of a fast-rising data startup called Astronomer. Kristin Cabot, his chief people officer. Same company, same leadership team, same secret. And in 1 second, everything collapses. Andy drops. Not subtle, not casual. He dives, like disappearing into the floor is safer than being seen. Kristin turns instantly. Face gone, body angled away. Too late. Chris Martin's voice echoes across the stadium. Do you have an affair, or are you just very shy? The crowd laughs. The internet doesn't. 15 seconds. That's all it took. 15 seconds that turned into 300 billion views, not million. Billion.
Take us back to the night of the Coldplay concert.
Growing fallout from the kiss cam moments seen around the world, sparking dozens of memes and videos.
It is crazy how big this is.
That was the first time you all had physically touched. That's what you said to us earlier. You hadn't even touched.
Andy Byron went silent, kept his marriage, and started getting job offers. Kristin Cabot, she lost her career, got death threats, had strangers showing up at her house, and eventually had to sit across from Oprah just to remind the world she's human. Same moment, 2 completely different consequences. So what really happened? The night nobody told you about. Every TikTok started with that Jumbotron clip, but the real story? It started weeks earlier, 6 weeks before Coldplay ever stepped on that stage. Kristin's life was already changing. Her marriage was over, not messy, not public, just finished. She and her husband Andrew had quietly separated and were planning a divorce. At the same time, her professional life was exploding, in a good way. Astronomer wasn't just growing, it was scaling fast, over 100% year over year. And when you're the CEO and head of HR in a company like that, you don't just work together, you live in the same pressure, same meetings, same decisions, same late nights. One afternoon over something as normal as sandwiches, Andy asked her a simple question. How are you doing? Really? She told him the truth. Her marriage was over, and that's when everything shifted, because he looked back at her and said he was in the exact same place. Separated, living apart, divorce dragging on for years, 2 people. Same situation, same pressure. That connection didn't grow slowly, it accelerated. Weeks of conversations, personal, emotional, layered on top of intense work stress, turned into something real. And here's what most people got wrong. They weren't trying to sneak around forever. Just days before the concert, 5, maybe 6, they had a long lunch. Not romantic, strategic. They talked about telling the board, changing reporting structures, making it official, doing it the right way. Then came the Coldplay tickets. Kristin invited Andy to join her and some friends. Weeknight concert, casual, safe. Or at least, it felt that way. On the way in, her daughter texted her, "So cool, you and Andrew are both at the same concert." Pause. Her estranged husband was in the same stadium, somewhere in those 55,000 people. She brushed it off. Statistically, impossible to run into him. They were in a dark general admission section, about 250 people. Music loud, lights low, everyone dancing. It felt anonymous. Until it wasn't. The Jumbotron found them. Andy ducked. Kristin turned, and in that split second, her mind didn't go to Scandal, it went to her husband. What if he just saw that? And then the second realization hit harder. She wasn't just a woman in a complicated situation. She was the head of HR, standing next to her CEO, and she knew exactly how bad that looked. They left the crowd, found a table, tried to process it, but the real impact hadn't even started yet. That night, driving home, she worried about Andrew. Then in the middle of the night, her phone lit up. A message from Andy, a TikTok screenshot. Caption, "Houston, we have a problem." She didn't even have TikTok. She had no idea. Her entire life had just gone public. What happened to her? By 7 a.m., it was everywhere. Her phone didn't stop. Calls, messages, notifications. The board already knew. The internet had already decided who she was before she even woke up. Within hours, she made a choice. She walked away. Not forced, not negotiated. She left Astronomer because she couldn't ask others to follow rules. She had just broken. She thought staying quiet would make it pass. It didn't. Her address got leaked, Strangers showed up. Paparazzi camped outside, and then the call started. Death threats. Constant. Her kids heard one and thought they might lose their mom. That's when it stopped being internet drama. That's when it became real. She faced everything alone, while he said nothing, not once. What happened to him? Andy Byron didn't disappear immediately, not at first. Because in situations like this, power doesn't vanish overnight. It pauses, then it recalculates. First, the board stepped in. Not publicly, not dramatically, quietly, behind closed doors. He was placed on forced leave, the kind that sounds temporary, but usually isn't. An internal investigation was announced. Language like reviewing company policies, evaluating leadership conduct, the kind of corporate phrasing that says everything without saying anything. In the meantime, co-founder Pete DeJoy stepped in as interim CEO. Business continued. Meetings happened, emails were sent. From the outside, the company looked stable, but internally, everyone knew. And then, just a few days later, Andy Byron resigned. No press conference, no public apology, no accountability tour, no explanation. Just a quiet update, and then silence. Like he simply stepped out of the frame the same way he tried to on that Jumbotron. And while the internet was still dissecting every frame of that video, he was already gone. Off the grid. Out of reach. His wife Megan made her own move. She dropped the Byron name, returned to Kerrigan, and retreated to the family's private estate in Maine. No interviews, no statements, just distance. And yet, despite everything, his marriage survived, which for many people watching, didn't make sense, because the version of the story they saw online felt final. But real life is rarely that simple. And then came the part that almost nobody expected. His career didn't collapse, it paused, and then quietly restarted. Because behind the scenes, the calls began. Recruiters, investors, private conversations. Interest didn't disappear, it multiplied. Opportunities started forming before the public narrative had even settled. No viral backlash at his doorstep, no crowds outside his house, no one publishing his address, no one turning his personal life into a spectacle, and most noticeably, no one questioned his competence. No one asked, did he manipulate his way to the top? Did he trade relationships for success? That narrative was reserved for someone else, for Kristin. And that contrast is where the story shifts. Because while he moved in silence, she was forced into visibility. Every mistake she made was turned into identity. Every decision turned into judgment. And every rumor treated like fact. She had to explain herself over and over again. Not just to the public, but to strangers who had already decided who she was. Meanwhile, he didn't explain anything. He didn't deny, he didn't confirm, he didn't clarify. He just waited. And in today's system, silence can be strategy, because the less you say, the less there is to attack. The reality no one talks about. This wasn't just a scandal, it was a case study in how attention works. Because the algorithm doesn't reward truth, it rewards emotion, conflict, outrage, shock. Kristin turned away for a second. Just one moment. And since then, she's been the one facing everything. Directly, publicly, alone. He got job offers, she got death threats. Same moment, same video, completely different outcomes. So now that you've seen the full picture, not just the clip, not just the headlines, but everything that came after, ask yourself one thing. In a world driven by attention, who actually pays the price? And more importantly, who gets to walk away? Drop your answer below.